I'm not the kind of man who breaks easily. I've been in this industry for 12 years, shipped more projects than I can count, stayed late, stepped up, cleaned messes other people pretended not to see. So when my boss looked me straight in the eye and said he was giving my budget to someone else because he deserves it more, something in me didn't snap. It went quiet, too quiet, like the moment right before a storm decides whether it's going to break the windows or let you walk home dry. I'll tell you exactly how it happened. The meeting wasn't even supposed to be serious. A casual Wednesday rundown, our team in a conference room with flickering LED lights and a bowl of stale pretzels someone kept refilling like tradition. I had spent the last 3 months building the blueprint for a product update our company called Strategic Priority. Everyone else called it Mark's Project because I lived in that thing. Every detail, every dependency, every risk grid, every ounce of budget I had fought tooth and nail to get approved. And then there was Lucas, 26, overconfident, always entering a room like he'd been practicing a TED Talk backstage. Jared, our boss, treated him like he'd discovered the next Steve Jobs Jr. edition. The rest of us knew better. Lucas delivered slides, not results, but Jared loved him. He wasn't subtle about it either. That morning, Jared walked in late, holding a smoothie the color of wet grass. He didn't apologize. He never did. He just sat, tapped the table twice, and said, "Let's make this quick." I started presenting my timeline updates, went over controls we'd stabilized, the early prototypes that finally passed QA without spontaneously combusting. My numbers were solid. My team had pulled off minor miracles. Even the room felt on my side. Then Jared interrupted mid-sentence. "All right, stop there," he said, waving his hand lazily. "I've thought about the budget allocation for Q4. I nodded. I'd fought for it just last week. It was approved, signed, greenlit. The first time in months I felt like the company actually believed in the project. Jared leaned back, that smug smirk he did when he thought he was being visionary. "I'm reallocating it," he said, "to Lucas." At first, I genuinely thought I'd misheard. "To Lucas? For what?" Lucas pretended to act surprised, but his face betrayed him by a half-second. He knew. Jared shrugged. "He deserves it. He's been putting in the creative initiative your project doesn't really showcase. And he has a pitch I'm excited about." There was a silence so thick even the HVAC seemed ashamed to make noise. I didn't blow up. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. That's not strength. It's what exhaustion looks like once it stops begging to be respected. "Jared," I said slowly, "the budget is tied to deliverables. We're mid-cycle. You approved this. We're committed." "Relax, Mark," he exhaled theatrically. "You're good at making things work with constraints. You'll figure it out." A few people lowered their eyes. They'd seen this before, just never to this degree. Lucas leaned back, folded his hands behind his head, and said, "Don't worry, man. I'll loop you into my pitch deck. Plenty of synergy." He even winked. That was the moment something inside me tilted. Not rage, not humiliation. Clarity. I closed my laptop quietly. Understood. Jared didn't hear how flat my voice was. Or maybe he did and didn't care. The meeting moved on, or rather Jared pretended it did. Nobody listened. The air felt bruised. When we finally left, one of the devs caught up to me in the hallway. "Hey, man," he said. "I'm sorry. That was messed up." I nodded. "Yeah." Even in the elevator alone, I didn't curse, didn't hit a wall, didn't rehearse the argument I should have had. Instead, I replayed Jared's tone, the arrogance dripping off every word. I replayed Lucas's grin. I replayed every late night spent saving the same people who now stood on my back to climb a ladder they didn't earn. At my desk, my inbox was already flooded with new tasks Jared had assigned during the meeting. All mine. None for Lucas, of course. Around 3, I walked past the glass office Jared called his command center. He was inside with Lucas, laughing about something. When they noticed me, Jared straightened up. "Mark," he said loudly, "make sure the updated roadmap reflects the new resource constraints. And don't overcomplicate it. Lucas will have oversight on the direction. Oversight. The word hit harder than the budget cut. Lucas raised his brows at me like he'd been crowned royalty. We'll make it work, he said. I didn't answer, didn't slow down, didn't show anything. But Jared must have sensed something because he added, Come on, man. Be a team player. Lucas is stepping up. You should support that. I kept walking. That night, after most people left, I sat alone in the office surrounded by glowing screens. My project, the one I had built from nothing, was now starving, and the man who crippled it wanted me to thank him for the privilege. Outside the windows, the city lights blurred in the glass, as if the whole skyline refused to look at me. It was exactly then, staring into a reflection I barely recognized, that an unexpected thought hit me. I didn't lose something today. They did, but that realization hadn't fully formed yet. Not the way it eventually would. Not in the way that would burn everything down. Because what happened that night, after Jared left, after Lucas walked out humming like someone who just won a prize, was the moment that started all of this. The moment I opened something I wasn't supposed to see, the moment none of them could take back, and the moment I stopped being the man who kept quiet. That night, I stopped being their safety net, and without knowing it, they'd already stepped into freefall. What I opened that night wasn't just a file. It was a mirror they'd been hoping no one would ever hold up. The office was almost empty. Cleaning staff wheeled a vacuum down the hall, humming to themselves. Everyone else was at home, watching shows and forgetting work existed. I was still there, staring at the resource management tool like it personally offended me. Technically, the budget reallocation was simple. A few clicks, a couple of approvals, numbers sliding from one cost center to another. On paper, it looked clean, normal. But numbers don't lie. People do. I opened the financial dashboard and pulled up my project code. The budget line that had looked healthy last week was a skeleton now. Half of the funds moved into a different internal project ID. Innov ALK Init, Lucas's initials. Curiosity is a dangerous thing when you've just been insulted and you're too tired to pretend it's fine. I drilled into the line items. Some shifts were labeled optimization, others strategic reclassification. Beneath the corporate jargon, it was all the same. They'd taken from one pocket and pretended the pants were new. I clicked deeper into the approvals log. Jared's name was everywhere. There it was, a memo he'd sent to finance 2 days before our quick meeting. Consolidate funds under Lucas's innovation project. Mark's work can be maintained with reduced scope. He's adaptable. He hadn't even told me yet when he wrote that. My fate had been a bullet point in an email thread. I scrolled further and found another comment, this time from Lucas himself on an internal note. With my concept, ROI will be higher than Mark's incremental improvement focus. He'll execute regardless. That's what he's good at. That was the first time that night my jaw actually locked. Not because they were wrong about me being able to execute. Execution is what keeps companies alive, but because they had turned my reliability into an excuse to rob me blind. I took a screenshot. It was a small thing, a quiet click, but that was the moment the dynamic changed, even if nobody else knew it yet. I didn't blow the whistle right there. I didn't run to HR. I didn't print the emails and slam them down on Jared's glass desk, like in some cheap movie. I just saved the screenshot into a private, encrypted folder I'd set up years ago for contracts and tax records. I renamed it something boring. Habits like that don't seem important until they're the only reason you're not gaslit into thinking you imagined it all. The next day, the injustice didn't get smaller. It got louder. Jared called a quick sync with the leadership team. Not the whole company, just the people whose opinions actually change things. I wasn't technically needed in that meeting, but he pinged me anyway. "Join us, Mark," he wrote. "You should hear where things are headed." I walked in with a notebook and a pen, nothing else. Lucas was already there, sleeves rolled up, standing by the screen like it was his stage. Jared smiled at him the way dads smile at sons who almost hit the ball. All right, Jared said, clapping his hands together. We're here to talk about Q4 innovation focus. Lucas, why don't you start? I sat down at the far end of the table. The slides came up. At first, my brain didn't process what I was seeing. The layout was different. The fonts changed. But the content, the structure, the phases, the risk assessment framework, even the phrasing of some bullet points, was mine. My roadmap, my analysis, my weeks of whiteboard sessions with the team, translated into Lucas's bright, confident voice. He didn't even bother to change the order of milestones. He just renamed them with flashier titles and added buzzwords like disruptive and moonshot. Jared nodded along as if he was hearing the gospel. This, Jared said to the room, is the kind of forward thinking I want to reward, not just maintaining what we have, but redefining it. One of the directors glanced at me, then quickly looked back at the screen. She recognized the skeleton of my work. Most people who'd ever read a spec did. Lucas finished with a slide titled Path to Market Dominance. I'd literally called that stage Phase 3, Market Fit Stabilization, in my original doc. He'd rephrased it into something more dramatic and called it Innovation. The room clapped. I didn't. Jared turned to me like he'd just remembered I existed. Anything you want to add, Mark? That was the test. Say nothing and be complicit. Say something and be difficult. I kept my tone neutral. It's a solid plan. Execution details will matter. Lucas grinned. That's where you come in, man. You're great at details. The way he said details felt like a leash. I looked at Jared. Just make sure we're aligned on who owns what. Clarity prevents future confusion. Jared's smile thinned, just a little. Ownership is a leadership decision, he said. You'll support. That was the second moment something in me shifted. They weren't just taking credit. They were rewriting reality in real time and expecting me to nod along. That night, I didn't stay late. I went home, sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, and reopened the screenshot folder. Then I started digging again, this time with a purpose. I searched for every reference to my project code paired with Lucas's ID. There were more emails, an earlier one from Jared to HR, lobbying for a high-potential bonus for Lucas, based on his significant contribution to the upcoming strategic release. My release, I saved that one too. Then another thread where Lucas was CC'd but never replied. Jared wrote, "We'll justify the reallocation under innovation. Mark's work will be folded into it. He doesn't need the visibility, he needs stability." There it was in plain text. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a miscommunication. It was a decision. I sat back, staring at the glow of the screen. For a long time, I'd thought my role was to keep things from breaking. Fix process, mediate egos, absorb shocks. I'd told myself that was strength, maturity, professionalism. That night, I stopped being the hero. Heroes patch holes in ships they don't own, while the captain drills new ones for fun. I wasn't going to do that anymore. The next few days, irritation became a permanent background noise. Jared forgot to invite me to a couple of planning calls, then forwarded me the action items with a note. "Can you handle these? Lucas is swamped with big picture stuff." Big picture stuff turned out to be him sitting in the open area, brainstorming taglines with marketing like he'd personally invented software. In stand-ups, Jared started directing all praise his way. "Lucas has really stepped up with this initiative," he'd say, glancing at me like he wanted me to agree. "Mark will make sure it lands smoothly." My team noticed. They didn't say it out loud, but their eyes did. One of my senior engineers, Priya, stopped me after a call. "Do they seriously think we don't see what's going on?" she asked. I shrugged. Seeing isn't the problem. She hesitated, then added, "If you ever need statements or timestamps or anything, I've got notes. I write everything down." That was a small win. Not revenge, not justice, just proof that I wasn't alone in reality. It also reminded me of something important. This wasn't just happening in my head. They were doing this out in the open because they genuinely believed nobody would challenge it. They were used to people like me eating it quietly. One afternoon, Jared pulled me into his office for a quick chat. He closed the door, theatrically concerned. "Look, Mark, I'm picking up on some resistance from you." "I'm doing my job," I said. "Sure," he replied, "but I need more than execution. I need positivity. Lucas is bringing fresh energy, and if you can't get behind that, it makes things awkward." There it was. Not only did they take my budget and my credit, they also wanted my support. "What exactly do you need from me?" I asked. He leaned back. "Simple. I want you to present the next status update as a joint effort. Talk about how Lucas's concept evolved your original plan. Show that you're aligned. It'll look good for both of you. It would look good for them. It would cement their version of the story." I held his gaze. "You want me to say this was his idea?" "I want you to be a team player," Jared corrected. "And if I don't?" His smile didn't move, but his eyes did. Then I started asking questions about fit. "We good?" He thought that was a threat that would shut me down. Instead, it was the last piece I needed. Because up until that moment, they could still claim ignorance, misaligned expectations, miscommunication. After that sentence, it was coercion. And coercion has a way of sounding very different when it's repeated in the right room. He dismissed me with a pat on the back, like I'd just been given a pep talk. That week, I did what he asked. Partially. In the status meeting, I kept my tone mild, my words precise. "We initially scoped this as an incremental improvement," I said. "Leadership decided to channel the budget through Lucas's initiative, so we're now working under that structure. My team is adapting to the constraints." I watched the director from before narrow her eyes slightly. She heard the subtext. Lucas took over, flashing that polished smile. "Yeah, we're all collaborating. It's been great having Mark make the details happen." The details again. After the call, I went back to my desk, opened my private folder, and added a short text file with timestamps and quotes from the conversation. Dry. Factual. No emotion. I knew something then I hadn't fully accepted before. If I stayed quiet, I wasn't just a victim. I was an accomplice. However much I hated the word, that's what it was. So I made a decision. I was done playing defense, and the next move I made was the first one they never saw coming. The thing about quiet men is people assume we stay quiet forever. They forget that silence isn't weakness. It's observation. And when someone who observes finally moves, he doesn't swing wildly. He aims. I started with something simple. Information. There's a rule in corporate work most people don't realize. Every decision leaves a trail, even the ones meant to be hidden. Budgets, approvals, comments, timestamps. People think because they click resolve on an internal thread, the skeletons disappear. They don't. They just move deeper into the closet. I already had my screenshots, but I needed more. Something cleaner. Something undeniable. So I spent the next week doing what I do best, noticing. Every time Lucas submitted a proposal, I checked the metadata. He reused templates, nothing unusual. But the timestamp patterns were off. Files supposedly drafted at 2 p.m. had metadata showing edits at 11 p.m. the night before by someone else. Someone whose username started with JRadmin. Another file had contributions from an IP address not assigned to him. It wasn't just favoritism. It was oversight disguised as independence. Jared was ghostwriting his star's work. And then I found the thing that changed everything. A transfer log buried in the budget system, labeled MISC operational. Inside it was a movement of funds to an external vendor, except the vendor didn't exist. The tax ID led where? The website URL was dead, and the charge description read, Creative Consultancy, Strategic Concept Development. The amount? Just under the threshold that triggers automatic review. My project's money. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even surprised. What I felt was something colder, cleaner, a kind of clarity that sharpened the edges of the world. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. The next morning, I printed nothing. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't slam drawers or question decisions. That's how amateurs fight. Professionals fight by letting the other side believe everything is normal while you quietly pull their coordinates apart. I walked into work like any other day, coffee in hand, jacket over my arm. Jared waved at me from his office with that patronizing, "Let's be buddies" smile. We won't be buddies, I thought. Around noon, HR hosted one of their routine wellness sessions in the large meeting room. Mindfulness, stress, boundaries. Most people ignored it, but the HR director, a woman named Elise, always lingered afterward to chat with whoever dropped by her office. She liked details. She remembered them. Her job required it. I stopped by her door with a neutral expression. "Got a minute?" I asked. She looked up immediately. "Of course." I stepped inside, closed the door, and sat. No theatrics. No accusations. Just facts. "I need to report something," I said, "but I'm not filing a complaint yet. I want to walk you through a situation and confirm it belongs under your jurisdiction." She nodded slowly. "I'm listening." So I explained. Not emotionally, not dramatically. I described the timeline of budget reallocation, credit reassignment, coerced statements, and threatening language. I didn't interpret anything. I just laid out the events like a ledger. When I finished, she asked one question. "Do you have documentation?" "I do," I said. "All dated, all preserved. And one of the directors can verify the shift in project ownership was misrepresented." Elise leaned back, exhaled once through her nose, and said, "Mark, this isn't small." "I'm aware. This will trigger an internal review. I know. Are you prepared for that process?" "I am." She studied me, trying to gauge whether I was impulsive or deliberate. She must have seen the steadiness I felt, because she nodded. "Send everything to me," she said. "Privately. No one else. We'll proceed from there." I walked out without looking back. No victory lap, no satisfaction, just the quiet weight of a machine that had finally started turning. That afternoon, Jared called me into his office again. He looked impatient, tapping his pen against a folder. "Close the door," he said. I did. "So," he began, "I've been getting the sense you're not aligned with the direction I'm setting." "I'm aligned with the project goals," I replied. "That's not what I asked," he said, leaning forward. "Your attitude has been off. And if you can't get behind Lucas's leadership—" "Lucas's leadership?" I repeated. "Yes," he snapped. "Do I need to explain this every time? He has vision. You execute." I could have argued. I could have defended myself. Instead, I asked, "Are you giving him signing authority on my deliverables?" His jaw tightened. "If I choose to. You're in no position to question that." I nodded once. "Good to know." He frowned. "Is that a threat?" "No," I said. "It's documentation." He blinked. "What did you just say?" "Nothing," I replied, standing. "We're done here." The panic didn't hit him yet. He didn't understand what was already in motion, but Lucas did. The next day, he approached me at my desk with forced casualness. "Hey, man," he said. "Jared mentioned things seemed tense. You good?" "I'm fine," I answered. "Cool, cool," he said, shifting his weight. "Just wanted to say if you need help adjusting—" "Adjusting to what?" I asked. He flinched. "You know, shift in responsibilities." "Nothing to adjust to," I said. "Things are moving the way they should." He gave a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Okay, well, we're all on the same team here." "Are we?" I asked. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. That was the first crack. The second came when Elise scheduled individual check-ins with our entire team for the next week. Nobody knew what it was for, but whispers started. Speculation, concern. Jared stopped being relaxed. He started pacing more, closing doors, having hushed conversations with Lucas, checking email obsessively. And then he made a mistake, a big one. He called a full team meeting to clarify roles. When he tried to reframe the budget theft as necessary leadership alignment, Priya raised her hand and said, "But that's not what happened, right? You told us last month Mark's project was fully approved. We all heard it." Jared's face drained. Someone else chimed in quietly, and the roadmap was his. We were in those meetings. He tried to regain control by talking louder, but panic makes even confident men sloppy. He said too much, claimed too many contradictory things, and every word was spoken in front of witnesses. That was when the final piece fell into place. At the end of the day, Elise emailed me. "We need to schedule a formal interview. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., conference room C." I didn't reply right away. I just leaned back and watched Jared across the office, sweating through a conversation with Lucas, both of them whispering like children hiding stolen candy. They didn't know it yet, but the floor under them had already started breaking, and all I had to do was stand still and let gravity finish the job. Internal reviews don't explode. They seep, quietly, steadily, the way water finds every crack in a wall no one bothered to reinforce. By the time anyone notices, the foundation's already shifting. My interview with HR wasn't dramatic. Elise sat across from me with a legal pad and a calm expression, the kind people wear when they already know the truth and just need you to confirm the details. She asked questions. I answered plainly. Dates, phrases, directives. Who was present? What changed when? When I handed her the folder of documented evidence, clean file names, timestamps, metadata, she didn't even need to open it. "This is more organized than most full cases," she said. "I've had time," I replied. The interview took an hour. The fallout took far less. By noon, Jared's calendar showed 3 back-to-back meetings with HR and finance. Lucas had one as well. No one made eye contact with them as they walked through the office. Word travels in silence faster than shouting ever could. Around 2, the director, who'd recognized my roadmap in Lucas's presentation, approached me privately. "I've been asked to verify a few things," she said. "I'll be truthful." "Always appreciate it," I told her. She looked at me for a long moment, then added, "You should have been running that initiative from the start." I didn't say thank you. I simply nodded. Validation feels different when you're no longer hungry for it. By the end of the day, Jared's office door stayed closed. At 6, security walked him out, not handcuffed, not theatrical, just escorted. He didn't look at anyone. He didn't even pack. Someone would ship his things. Policy. Lucas lasted 48 hours longer. He came in the next morning visibly shaken, hair unstyled, shirt wrinkled as if he'd forgotten how buttons worked. He kept checking his email, refreshing like a man waiting for a miracle. When HR finally called him in, he turned to me for a split second. Not angry, not arrogant, just scared. He knew exactly what he'd been protected from all this time, and he knew what it meant when the protection evaporated. He was demoted, not fired, classified as role reassignment due to discrepancies in contribution documentation, which was corporate language for, "You're lucky we're not calling this misconduct." His innovation project was terminated before it even launched. His bonus eligibility was revoked. His privileges, the corner desk, the design sessions, the vanity assignments, all stripped. He was reassigned to a junior analyst rotation program, the one meant for new hires who didn't yet know where they belonged. For the first time since he joined the company, he looked like exactly what he was: untested, unsteady, and out of borrowed rope. The office didn't cheer. No one high-fived. That's not how real justice feels. It's quieter, controlled. A shift in the air you don't need to announce. A week later, leadership reached out to me. They didn't apologize. Companies don't apologize. They recognized contributions, but they offered something that actually mattered: ownership, true ownership. They reassigned the project to me under a new code, with a corrected budget and a small grant attached for strategic continuation. My name was placed on the release documentation as primary architect. They asked if I'd consider stepping into a senior cross-team lead role. I didn't say yes right away, not out of spite, out of deliberation. You don't escape a collapsing structure just to run into another without checking where the beams are. But when I did accept, it felt clean. There was no catch, no hidden favor, just merit. My team reacted the way good teams do. Subtle smiles, real relief, a sense of balance restored. Priya left a sticky note on my monitor. Finally, I kept it. The weeks that followed were stable, almost quiet. Meetings made sense again. Work flowed logically instead of emotionally. People stopped looking over their shoulders. You don't realize how loud an unhealthy environment is until you step out of it and hear your own thoughts again. One evening, while reviewing the project's timeline in an empty conference room, I saw Lucas down the hall, sorting boxes of outdated hardware for inventory. He didn't see me. He moved slowly, methodically, like someone who finally understood how much noise he'd been making in a world he didn't build. I didn't feel triumph watching him. I felt closure. Justice isn't about punishment. It's about proportion. He learned something I had learned years earlier. Ambition without grounding eventually collapses under its own weight. As for Jared, word spread that he'd applied for a leadership role at a competitor. They reached out to verify his record. HR only shared what policy allowed: dates of employment, job title, eligibility for rehire. The last line was marked no. Corporate exile is quieter than people expect. The day I realized everything was truly over wasn't the day they were disciplined, or the day my promotion was formalized. It was a Tuesday morning. I made coffee, logged in, opened my project board, and felt absolutely nothing pressing on my chest. Just peace. My team delivered the next milestone early. Finance approved every resource request without hesitation. The director who verified my claims now trusted me with initiatives outside my department. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting the tide. I was steering the boat, and I didn't need revenge to get here. I needed truth, and discipline, and silence at the right moment. People think standing up means shouting, but sometimes standing up means documenting everything quietly until the floor beneath the wrong people gives out. In the end, the storm they created didn't hit me. It swallowed them. And I walked out of it exactly the way I wanted: calm, steady, promoted, respected, and finally free to do my work without carrying men who didn't deserve the weight of my effort across their shoulders. The last thing I told Elise during one of the follow-up meetings was simple. I just don't want this happening to anyone else. She nodded. It won't. So that was it. Locks metaphorically changed, paperwork completed, life resumed. And for the first time in months, I closed my laptop at a normal hour, turned off the conference room light, and walked into the hallway, feeling like the building itself wasn't leaning on me anymore. Some endings don't need applause, just relief.